Hi everyone, welcome to Morbid Planet. I'm your host, Erin Chapman. Tonight we have two unique guests for you, two owners of the Ghosts of Gettysburg.com, and they are actually ghost hunters. So I want you guys to give a warm welcome to Mark and Carol Nesbitt. Welcome, you guys. I'm so happy you're here. Thank you so much for coming on.
Hi, Erin.
Hi.
Hello, we're happy to be here.
I have so many questions, so I'm just going to dive right into it, and hopefully you guys can share a lot of your experiences. I think it should be really fun. Do you find, like you see on the TV or the movie, the evil ones, or do you have people try to communicate with you that way, or is it mostly a positive experience?
Well, nasty people died too. We don't suddenly become spiritual necessarily just because we died. Yeah. So that's what people tend to run into, is just a nasty person, a nasty spirit, not so much the demonic. Like I said, that's pretty rare to have that kind of encounter. So, and then you just shut them down, and there's no reason. You are in control. You are not a victim. And it's a matter of just putting your authority in place, of saying, you know what? I'm not going to talk to you.
Yeah, I'm moving on. Next one. Yeah.
Or even a lot of times, if I'm using a pendulum, you can feel the energy change even among the spirits. So you can tell when you've used it long enough, you can tell when a different energy, a different spirit's moved in. And if you weren't done talking to the previous one, say that and just say, I'm sorry, I will get to you. I want to talk to this other person. In Gettysburg, a lot of times, we have to ask for the highest ranking officer.
Yeah, because there was so many people.
Mm-hmm. And they all want to talk because they all want to share their stories. Who wouldn't want to be heard? So it's pretty interesting.
Just for people that don't know, like our fans that aren't familiar or haven't seen your website, can you explain what it is you guys do?
Probably not. It's pretty complicated. Actually, Ghost Hunters is an interesting title because I prefer to call myself paranormal investigator, because we're pretty sure these are ghosts that we're dealing with here, but it still falls into the paranormal realm because it's paranormal. It's not normal. The fact that what we're dealing with here are entities that have that show some kind of life or consciousness after their physical death, which is pretty amazing. That's the probably the ultimate question that humans have dealt with since we were cognizant of what was going on around us. And so that's basically what we do. And Carol, she can speak for herself, but she kind of blundered into this by marrying me.
That was one of my questions, actually. Yeah.
Okay. She was, I'll let her talk here for herself, but she was in retail and she was a bio major in college. She was computers. So all this really straight stuff.
Yeah.
And when we got married, I had written the Ghosts of Gettysburg first few books. And she kind of got hauled into that. So I'll let
you. My introduction to it was really because I have an IT background and I worked for a consulting company. I said, okay, the primary business was the ghost tours. And so we talked about it, and I said, all right, I'll handle the PR and marketing and the website. I would do all the behind the scenes stuff. I took over the publishing of his books too. So we created a publishing company, and I would do the editing, and we switched over all of his ghost books and several other books. And you did an interview with Catherine Ramslin. Mark and Catherine co-wrote 2 books. And also published 2 of her books that were unrelated to the serial killer. They were all ghost story oriented. We ended up doing a show called Mysterious Journeys, and it was for the Travel Channel. And somehow I ended up on the other side of the camera. So
were you willing, or was it just kind of like, hey, come here and
yeah, it
partake?
kind of happened. So I haven't looked back, and it's been a very interesting journey. So I
That's
always
cool.
bring the research and the questioning and all of that aspect of it. So I'm kind of the grounding side.
That's really cool. And I guess for people that don't really know the story behind Gettysburg, how would you kind of sum that up for everyone?
Well, the name Gettysburg, of course, just everyone is familiar with it. It was a battle that was fought during the American Civil War in 1863. It's considered by many to be the watershed battle of the 4-year American Civil War. The South had invaded the North for the second time, came very, very close to winning there. Had they won at Gettysburg, the Confederates probably would have gone on to Harrisburg, the capital of Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, possibly even Washington, D.C., the capital of the North.
Yeah.
So there's a lot on the line during the 3-day Battle of Gettysburg, which, as far as history is concerned, it is one of the most important in all of human history. And as far as ghosts are concerned, there were 51,000 casualties.
Wow.
Killed, wounded, and missing in just the 3 days. Virtually every building in Gettysburg was filled to capacity with wounded soldiers.
Wow.
Soldiers were buried all over the place. I mean, in town, a lot of people come to Gettysburg and they come in our office and they say, where's the battlefield? And we're like, you're on it. And the men fought through the streets of Gettysburg, and many were buried in the backyards of people there who live there. And then were eventually taken to the National Cemetery, which is only about 400 yards from our building where we run the tours out of.
Oh, wow.
Our building was occupied, and just as an example of the buildings in Gettysburg, our building was occupied by Confederates. Our building has evidence of hauntings. And so in terms of ghost occupation of the town, the battle was kind of like the perfect storm for a haunting, for Gettysburg to be haunted. And I have collected well over 1,000 stories. Not all of them are published. And then after the first book came out, the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of stories that were sent to me by people who were afraid to really talk about it. They didn't want to say, I saw a ghost at Gettysburg, or this is what happened to me at Gettysburg. But they finally, when they read my books and realized that they weren't
alone.
Yeah, right. Weren't alone. Then they started sending me their stories. So it's Gettysburg is an interesting place, first of all, historically, and secondly, paranormally as well.
If you look back, and when did you start writing then? I was looking, it looks like your Ghosts of Gettysburg series started about 1991. Was that right?
That's
correct. How did you get into writing on this topic? What kind of led you up to that?
Well, I was a park ranger at Gettysburg for a number of years. And as a park ranger, I stayed in 4 of the houses that are on the battlefield. There are some historic houses that are probably around 70 or 80 historic houses that are still on the battlefield. And every single one of them, I had some sort of weird experience that I couldn't explain. So I started jotting these things down. Well, actually, the one that really kind of turned the corner on me was I was in the National Cemetery Lodge. I lived in the National Cemetery there with all the graves and everything.
So the lodge is right beside it?
Yeah, the building, the Cemetery Lodge is right there on the street, and it used to welcome people to the cemetery, but it became park quarters. And one day I remember I just finished lunch, and I was carrying my dishes from the dining room out to the kitchen. Middle of the afternoon, all of a sudden I heard a child or a baby cry. And I froze. I was like, what? I said, and when something like that weird happens, we all try and explain it. Well, it's the pipes, in the
It's
house.
the wind, the windows open.
Yeah. And the house settling. Of course, the place had been there 100 some years. Settling. I must have mentioned it in the coffee room the next day or two and at work. And my colleagues were like, you got to talk to this woman who lived there before you. So I talked to her and she said, oh yeah, I heard a baby crying a number of times.
Oh,
there. And then I realized that just down the street, 2 doors down the street from where the cemetery lodge was built, was the famous orphanage that was built there after the battle, after the war, to take care of the many orphans that were created
from everyone that died. Yeah,
War, absolutely. And the story about it is that the second matron there was nasty.
oh.
She would virtually torture the kids as punishment. So the fact that there were children crying historically just down the street gives me some sort of historical precedent for what I and others had experienced in that house. So I wrote it down. I wrote I kept hearing ghost stories as a park ranger. So I write them all down. And then probably about 10 years later, I finally submitted them to a publisher. And he says, sounds like a good idea. Let's put them all together. And so actually at that time, I was a historian collecting folklore. I wasn't a ghost hunter or a paranormal. And that's when I started getting the letters from people.
Yeah.
And invitations to go out and ghost hunt.
Were people like sending in the letters they sent you, or they're like, you got to come here and experience this and come and see what we've,
They had the experiences at Gettysburg. So when someone would send me in a letter saying I was at Culp's Hill and had that kind of experience, I could go right to the place where they had the experience myself.
And see if you could relive that as well.
Well, yeah, sort of that, but that didn't really start happening until about probably 94 or 95, when I went out on my first paranormal investigation with a local guy who ran the Pennsylvania Paranormal Association.
Okay.
And had a weird experience out there with these so-called orbs. And absolutely, he was saying there's some orbs out there. People were taking pictures, and he was getting a reading on a thermometer that said the temperature's falling out there. I said, what? It was the middle of the night, middle of a field of Pickett's Charge, which was a huge battle site. Well, I'm going out there. Tell me just where I have to stop. So I'm out there in the dark in the middle of this battlefield, and I'm going, what am I, nuts? What am I, crazy? All of a sudden he says, oh, those orbs are like moving towards you. I said, oh, really? And suddenly I got so cold, my hands started aching, and I was having trouble closing them. And I walked back. I said, there might be something to this, because when I walked back, it was warm again. So that's what got me interested. And of course, back then there was all kinds of equipment you had to buy. Now it's you can get most of that equipment on your phone. And we've actually gone over to the intuition forward type of investigation. Carol's one that actually kind of convinced me to do that, among other experiences. But everybody's good at something in the paranormal field. Carol is really, really good using a dowsing rods or the pendulum.
Yes, I saw that in a few videos last night I was looking at.
Yeah, I got some. She has found grave sites.
Oh.
Yeah, with her dowsing rods. So roundabout from being a historian.
Yeah.
To, and that kind of helps too, because historians like to document things.
Yes.
So that's why when I get these letters, I'll usually give them a call, have them repeat the story, you know, and I have little things that I look for. They're not making stuff up and that type of thing.
Yeah.
So that's how it went from that to Paranormal Investigator and book number 9.
Okay, that was my other question at this point. So you've done 9 books so far?
Well, I'm doing the 9th one right now.
Okay.
But I've
Okay.
actually done, what do we 27 books?
Yeah, total.
Total
Wow.
27 books, not actually more than that, but I shouldn't really count the ones that got rejected, you know.
That's okay. That's okay. That's still a lot though. That's an amazing accomplishment. Wow. And otherwise then, just because you were talking about what Carol, you do when you go with your pendulum and the dowling rod, and what can you tell us a little bit about that?
The theories out there are that the spirits have energy and that we can tap into that energy. What I like about the dowsing rods and the pendulum is it's a one-on-one relationship. So it's a very personal thing. You also, it's more controlled so that you can be very specific, and you want to be very specific. You want to ask to talk to somebody who, if we're in Gettysburg, it's going to be someone who fought there or lived there or worked there. We never say, is there anybody here? Because that would be like opening your front door and saying,
It's
okay,
like, everyone come.
Bye, come on in. Yeah. So it's really interesting when I'm working with people and teaching them how to do this, because I thoroughly believe everyone can do this. It's mainly a mental block, or you're just so focused on something.
Okay.
But what we're usually doing, and there's so many different ways to use the two dowsing rods. I mean, everybody's looking to see, okay, can I make them, will they cross for yes or no? But you can also use one rod and have it show you where the spirit is in the room. You know, it's really up to you and how creative you can be. The pendulum, you're just going to ask them to show you yes and then show you no.
Okay. And
So,
I think it goes one way or something or
it will,
it goes
it
back and
depends
forth?
on, yeah. Or you can just say, can you swing it in a circle for yes and back and forth for no?
Okay.
You can let them choose, or you can ask. And the fun thing to do is to ask to just stop it. To make sure when I'm working with people, it's like, just ask them to stop swinging it all together.
Yeah.
But yeah, so, and again, you can use the pendulum generically in a room. You can put it over a map. You can put it over a drawing. We use the stones because they're pretty. I mean, if you really get into it, you can get into the whole matching the stones to your chakras or to whatever energy that you're looking to connect with. In reality, you can use anything. When you get good at dowsing with either, you can use anything that dangles. Cool. You can use a necklace. You can use keys. Yeah. You can use whatever you have on hand to do the communication. And again, you're always going to do a prayer of protection.
Okay.
Always, always, always before you start working with anything.
Yeah.
Just to ask for only positive energies. It's not that we're, everybody's like, oh, all the shows with the demonics. That's
with like The Exorcist.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's very rare.
And going back to what Mark said earlier, I just have to ask about the whole orb thing. And the only reason I like to ask about that is because since I started filming, doing interviews and stuff, when I go back to look at my footage, a few times I've seen orbs go across the screen. And I'm just kind of like, oh, and it's at first, my other half is like, oh, it's got to be dust or something. But it's like, it's round, it's lit up, and then it's just going, and then it goes up different directions. And yeah, so I have to ask about those. I'm curious.
Well, there are a lot of theories on what orbs are. And it seems like they really, well, people think that they started when digital cameras came to the fore. People have gotten pictures of orbs with regular 35 millimeter cameras and things like that. A lot of people just want to say, oh, they're all dust, or they're all a bug, or they're all pollen.
Yeah.
Too close to the lens and out of focus. But I have to disagree because, first of all, pollen is way too small, to get, it's so small, it's much smaller than dust. I have created orbs in my other house when it was very dusty before I got married. Bang a couple pillows together, take a picture, and son of a gun, you have orbs. Okay. So yes, dust will show up like that. But I've also witnessed it do things that I can't explain, like come out of a mirror. When I was doing EVP, trying to get the electronic voice phenomenon questions, I had the recorder in my hand, and the orbs were coming out of a mirror to come and apparently talk to me. Then when I played it back, they were coming out of a wall. They were coming from all around. They would just appear and gather around as if they wanted to hear, what was going on or wanted to participate. Then I've seen orbs in videos doing strange things, like you saw, moving in strange directions. I've gotten a photograph of an orb that has a tail about, and the reference point is a window behind it. Orb's in the middle, but there's a tail over here and a tail over there. So that orb was moving, and it's a flash photo, and the flash goes off at about 1/1000th of a second. So that orb moved
that fast,
distance, maybe a yard, in
wow,
1/1000th of a second. As we all know, dust only travels at ambient wind speed. They're not going to go it's not going to go 1,000 miles an hour.
no.
So I'm not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater and say all orbs are just phony baloney stuff. There's something to it. I'm not sure exactly what it is. They seem to respond to requests. And the other interesting thing is there are people, I'm not one of them, there are people who claim to be able to see orbs with the naked eye. Now, that's not going to be a piece of dust too close to the lens of a camera. So there's something to it. I also got a picture virtually at the same time. We were at an investigation. I actually was kneeling down, taking a picture, and this other guy was 6'6", and he was taking a picture from over his head. And got a picture of the same orb. His was circular, mine was circular. That it was indeed an orb.
Okay.
It wasn't a flat disc, it was an orb. And we both got it at the same time, so it couldn't have been too close to one lens. So, so there are a number of different things that convince me that there's something to this. Exactly what, I don't know. Some kind of energy, at least something that exists in the realm of the ultraviolet or infrared photographs, using with the digital kind of stretches that out a little bit, so you do get a little more infrared or ultraviolet. So at any rate, that's my theory about these orbs.
Okay. So can you tell us a little bit about like the tours and everything? Like tell us about, your business. What do you guys do when someone comes over, goes on a tour? I'd like to know what someone would expect if they were going on that experience with you guys.
Okay. Well, we started the tours at the behest of the borough of Gettysburg. An official from the borough actually said, well, you've written these books. Can you develop a tour? We'd like to draw some people from the tourist area down to our area, downtown, and show them some of our pretty buildings. So I developed the tour, and it got really kind of popular then. And then, of course, it continued. What you will probably experience on our tour, what you absolutely will experience on our tour, are some great history. Because we are history forward with the tours. The guide will stop in front of a historic building, tell you the history of the site, and then go into the ghost stories that occurred in that building. And usually put 7 or 8 stops on each tour. Have 3 or 4 different tours, depending on the time of year. Are usually trying to add a few tours. We may put another one in this next year. I'm not sure.
Okay.
But at any rate, it's a walking tour. So it's a lot of fun to see a different side of Gettysburg. Years ago, when I was a tourist there, at night, we used to laugh because it's like they rolled up the sidewalks. You you didn't go anywhere. There was nothing to do at night. So what we've done is we changed that. It's been going on since 1993.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's kind of 94. No, I'm sorry, 94.
94.
So
Okay.
yeah, quite a while. We have lots of people who are copying us in Gettysburg. So make sure
Okay.
go on a tour, go to Ghosts of Gettysburg.
The authentic, the original one.
The original, yes.
Yes. Cool. I'd love to go on one, but I just never, especially with COVID at this point, I don't know when I'll get to the States next. So,
Yeah.
Well, here's an alternative option.
yes.
Just a year ago, I guess it was a year ago. Has it been out for a year? October to October?
Oh, yeah.
It
Yeah.
has been out
Okay.
a year. We actually do have an app.
Ooh.
It's it's Ghost Stories of the Battlefield. It's a self-guided it's a driving tour app that a company approached us. We already had it put together. Mark and I had recorded it years ago for back in the CD world.
Yeah. Okay.
And so we had all of that, and they approached us as Action Tour, and we put it together. But the really nice thing about it is you can do it from anywhere. If you're in Gettysburg, you can drive the battlefield and the GPS will trigger. But when you buy the app, there's a map and every location is numbered. So you can click on the number and you can get the history and the ghost story.
Excuse me, just one second.
Yeah, that's okay. Kind of like, I guess, when you go to the museums and then you get to wear the headset.
It's exactly like that.
That's awesome. Okay.
It's really cool. And Mark actually does all of the narration of the ghost stories.
And is that linked on your website as well?
It is. If you go to our e-store, there's a link there to get you to it.
Okay.
But so we were really excited about that. And it's been really, really well received. A lot of teachers liked it during COVID because they were looking for virtual learning.
Yes. Yes. A lot of people want anything that's virtual now.
Yep. So because the history was in it and it's fun because you get the ghost stories.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So that was our fun project.
Way to adapt. Yes.
Exactly.
Some marketing in there, adapt to the times and everything's changing. And that's great. So one of the things also I wanted to ask was just because a lot of different sites I was looking at yesterday and reading, and they're saying that people consider Gettysburg the most haunted place in America. Do you agree with that? And if so, are there any runner-up places that historically that you would say come even close?
Yeah, I would say that Gettysburg is probably the most haunted place in America, acre for acre. I've collected so many stories. I don't know of any other place that has quite that many stories that have been documented about it. I mean, all places, every place has its Crybaby Bridge, and other stories like that. Gettysburg has so many. Maybe the second most, because we did end up doing tours down there, is Fredericksburg, Virginia. Now, Fredericksburg was the scene of 4 major battles in the American Civil War. Okay, you had Fredericksburg itself, which was 1862, Chancellorsville, which was 1863, and then the Wilderness and Spotsylvania, which was 1864. That's when U.S. Grant and Robert E. Lee faced off for the first time.
Okay.
And all those battles were absolutely horrendous in terms of the number of casualties. And I mention that because I think the genesis of ghosts is human emotion. Everything's energy. Okay, everything's energy, even what goes on in the next world. I think the human emotion, especially when people are fighting for a cause, fighting for their country, and then being shot and preparing to die, or even just dying so quickly they don't even know it. The energy seems to remain in those sites. And Fredericksburg is much like Gettysburg in that they have several hundred of the houses that were there at the time of the battle, where men were taken after they were wounded from all those battles, all 4 battles. And in a short period of time, I pulled together probably 100 stories just from Fredericksburg and the surrounding area. So I would say that, but I did do a book called Civil War Ghost Trails, and got to go to all the major Civil War battlefields in the country, and they all have their stories of ghosts, hauntings, and things like that. So Antietam or Sharpsburg, 1862 was a terrible battle. The bloodiest single day in all of American history, September 17th, 1862. And that has a lot of stories to it. I've also done battlefields are kind of like my thing. So we did other battlefields as well. And I would love to go. We did go to Normandy, but we did not do any paranormal investigating there. That was a little too emotional.
Okay.
My head wasn't into it, but it was, I think it'd be fun to, once everything, if it ever does, if it gets easier to fly, my paranormal investigating there, but other battlefields I enjoy doing. We went to Pearl Harbor, and that had a feeling that really was different, but we did not do any paranormal.
You just went and visited and checked it out.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Normally when there's no COVID we go to see relatives in England, usually once a year. And I love going over there because we usually go down to the area called Devon, and there's Dartmoor and, all those places. And one of the first things I ever got there was the local shops, and they have these little mini museums and stuff. They have these books that are, I guess, based on local legends as well. And they tell you where you can go to see different hauntings or different things that have happened. And yeah, we used to do that as we'd go around and drive to these different places. I'd take some pictures, check it out. But it's fun. And I love Dartmoor. It's one of my favorite places just to walk around. So,
well, apparently some of the World War II aerodromes or airports that they use that are now abandoned, are hotspots for paranormal activity. I mean, here we have 18, 19, 20-year-old boys taking off in their B-17s and never coming back. Yeah. And that was the last time they had feet on the ground.
Mm-hmm. So that's where it would kind of go back to.
Yeah, airports.
Okay.
So, I mean, and of course, England, as you know, is pretty on it. When we do our research, we usually end up at a bar somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Because you get a lot of stories from bartenders. I mean, they're action central. Yeah. And people will eventually start talking about ghosts, and they remember this stuff. So that's one of our. Well, Carol, shall we go on to do some research tonight? Yeah, sure.
You touched a little bit on it earlier, and you talked about, I think on your website, I read that you've lived in 4 of the historic buildings. Can you tell us about like some encounters that you had there? And I believe you said your shop as well you've had encounters and things there as well.
Right. Well, in those houses and out on the battlefield, I only lived in them for a matter of months.
Yeah.
But there was one that I was told the previous tenants of that building could never keep the door to the attic closed. In fact, one of them even took a little pin nail and nailed it in. The next day it was open. And so I kept closing that door and closing the door and closing it. Sure enough, happened to me. But you look at that and you say, it's the wind,
Yeah.
Of course, even on still nights, it would still open up. But the one that really, maybe it's because I've had it for so long, is the ghost house, the one where we're at now, where we run the tours out of.
Okay.
The built in segments, 1839.
Close enough.
Yeah, in 1830s, the first segment And the second segment was in just a few years later. And then the last one was the 1880s with that was built. So
Okay.
you have layers of history. And of course, during the battle, we know that Confederate soldiers were in the area. So no doubt and we know they were in the house too, because of a letter that a woman left behind saying they had Confederate soldiers in that building, a woman who lived there.
Okay.
So, and the other neat thing is owning the place, I can lock it down. But before we rented part of it out, I could lock it down in the wintertime, which I did. And we could do paranormal investigations there. You know the place, you know the noises, you have names of people who lived there before you and died there. So if you're going to do any kind of communication, either with EVP or as Carol does, she can ask, for example, Mrs. Kitzmiller, are you here?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, and get a yes or no, and she usually is.
Yeah,
She still lives there. I have to pay the mortgage, but she still lives there.
You have a permanent guest.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, she considered it, she thinks she'll refer to it as her house. Well, there's a problem. And then it's ours. It's really funny.
Yeah.
She's like, okay, no, we need Mark.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, one quick story about the place, and it speaks to the mediums that we use as well, because we do use mediums in some of our work.
Okay.
And, one of them was upstairs and she came downstairs and she said, Mrs. Kitzmiller's not happy.
Okay.
I said, okay. She said, there's a little old Italian lady that's in her kitchen up there. And I'm like, okay, what am I supposed to do about it? She said, Mrs. Kitzmiller said, you go up there and get her out of there.
It was a ghost.
It was a ghost. And I'm like, me? And she's like, yes, you own the place, so go on. So, okay. Now, I am not psychic. I don't have any mysterious powers. I get up in the kitchen up there and I'm like, okay, ma'am, you have to leave. I'm not talking to myself is what I think. You can't stay here any longer. I don't know where you can go, but you have to leave. You're upsetting the lady who lives here. I said it a couple times. So I'm like, okay.
You're like, did I do it? I don't know.
Down I go downstairs. In the meantime, as we're standing there, one of the other mediums, a completely different medium that we use, was outside and walked through our door, and she's got a funny look on her face. She's looking behind her. She looks at us and she says, who's that little Italian woman standing out on the corner? So I'm like, what is going on here?
You're like, it worked.
Apparently just kicked her out of the house, but I don't know what I'm doing. Interesting on that account.
Yeah.
I had to kick her out. It was my job to get rid of her. So.
And if anybody's curious what we ultimately did,
Yeah.
we sent the little old Italian lady down to the Gettysburg Hotel
Yeah.
because there's a big kitchen there. And we told her she
Nice.
could hang out in that kitchen and do all the cooking she wanted and no one would care.
Because this one was spoken for, so you can't have this
Yeah.
kitchen.
Exactly.
Right. And we haven't seen her since. I never saw her at all. So.
And with a medium, just again, can you go into that a little bit more? Like, because I know what we see on TV and in movies and stuff. So when you have a medium join you with an investigation or you guys are looking into something, what exactly is their role? What do they do?
Well, Carol can address this a little bit better than I can, because my experience is basically asking one of them, okay, we're here we are in the basement of the Cashtown Inn. And they will tell me, I think there's a Confederate soldier here. And I want to get EVP. I said, well, what else do you have? Do you have a name?
Yeah.
They'll give me a name, and then I'll kind of be off. They'll give me information that I can use. Carol deals with them on a little bit different level. So.
Okay.
Usually when we take them places, we don't tell them if we can avoid it, where we're going. Okay, so there is no knowledge on their part ahead of time as to where we're going and why we're going there.
Or who you're looking to communicate with.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have nothing in mind and they have nothing in mind. That way, when we get out there, and if we're working with a group of people, then I mainly ask them to be there to kind of oversee and make sure they're a level of protection. I want to know if there is something negative or someone that's being challenging on the spirit side coming in. There is such a thing as attachments, where
Okay.
spirit is attracted to a particular person. And so that's what I'm asking them to do, is to make sure everybody's safe and
Yeah.
everybody leaves with what they brought and not with anything extra.
Yeah.
And
No souvenirs.
Yes. And I also don't want them unnecessarily providing information.
Okay.
So they can validate information, but I don't want them disclosing information.
Okay.
And that's if we're working with a group of people. If it's just Mark and me and the medium, then what I'm doing is recording what they're coming up with. If they're coming up with names, if we're on the battlefield and they can give us regiments, if they can give us states,
Okay.
if they can give us a name, if they can give us a rank, that we'll get as much information as we can, because then Mark can go back and research it and say, yes, somebody was there, or no, they weren't.
Mhm.
But we're not questioning them at the time. And really, all of the mediums that we work with are very low key. You're not going to see them for the most part on any TV programs. They do it because they want to do it. They have the ability to do it. And it's more of them wanting to get the stories out.
Yeah.
To talk to the spirits that want to talk, that want to tell their side of the story. And I just always say how cool it would be if we could go back in time and talk to some of these people and ask them questions and get information. That to me is what's so interesting about it. Mark being able to come back and say, oh my goodness,
there is this person with this name.
this person existed.
Well, for example, one of the mediums that we just recently started working with is incredibly astute. And we took her to a place. She didn't know where she was going. They just followed us in their car. And we went to a place called Hospital Woods, which is really not too many people know about it. In fact, there's several Hospital Woods.
Okay.
I took her to this one. And we got out in the field there, because there are pathways out there. And finally I asked her, are there any, are you picking up anything? She says, yeah, I'm picking up a lot. I said, any names or anything? And she stopped for a second. She says, yeah, there were two guys just approached me. And she gave me two names. I said, okay, obviously I don't know the name of every one of the 175,000 soldiers.
Yeah.
Said, I need a regiment, I need a state and a number, and if possible, a company.
Okay.
States, the regiments were according to states.
Yeah.
Number was a number of a regiment that was part of that state.
Okay.
And the company was usually within the regiment and identified by a letter, A, B, C, D.
Oh, okay. So like a section kind of.
Yeah. So I can narrow it down. I can go right to it on the computer.
Yeah.
She gave me two names. She said they were from Mississippi, and they came up and they were wounded.
Okay.
And they were generals. Well, she doesn't know the rank. Okay. They were officers, but they were not generals, but she doesn't know the rank.
Yeah.
But she gave me the names. So I went back. The next time I was at my computer, I typed in the regiment and the state. And sure enough, these two names were there under the names of the wounded. They had fought in a place called the Railroad Cut.
Okay.
And then after the fighting, their regiment was stationed in that Hospital Woods. The odds, she had the names, I don't know what the odds are of coming up with two names
out of that many people,
and plus the regiment, plus the company. So we're going to be working with her a little bit more.
That's cool. That's very exciting. Yeah. And it must be really exciting when you're looking for things like that. And then you have someone that it just connects and it works out so well like that, because then it helps you guys do what you do.
Yeah. So it really is. And it was kind of fortuitous. We just didn't really, a lot of these mediums are very reluctant.
Okay.
It's like we have outed a number of them. because they haven't talked about it to anybody. And then all of a sudden they give us some little clue and we're like, you're a medium, aren't you? And they're like, oops.
When you have these kind of situations where, there's energy there, do you ever, besides just like a lot of things that you just see, do you ever get like other senses involved, like touch or smell, things like that? Have you had experiences with that?
Yeah, I've been tapped on the shoulder and then 3 times and then that 3 times.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm looking around and nobody's there. I had my sleeve tugged out in a field by a farm that was used as a hospital. Don't see or hear things except through a camera or my recorder. And that's the EVP is interesting because you don't hear it when it's being recorded. At least I don't. No one does.
Okay. Yeah.
The electronic voice phenomenon. But then when you play it back, you hear it. So that those are the things that have happened to me. How about you?
They're big on cigarette smoke.
Oh yeah.
With me.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Because everyone smoked.
Yeah, because we were in a room at one point. We were at the Cashtown Inn and there were 6 of us there, 3 men, 3 women. Fascinating because all the women could smell the cigarette smoke. The men could not, and we were in the same room.
Do you ever smell anything else like different? Like, do you get perfumes or, flowers, all sorts of stuff?
People on our tours smell perfume.
Okay.
They smell, I've had people ask me, they smell rotten eggs. And the simple explanation, historical explanation for that is that the propellant that they used in all the weapons had sulfur in it.
Okay. Yeah.
That's the rotten egg smell.
When you go on like a different, I guess, investigation, do you always approach it with a little certain level of skepticism, because obviously people reach out to you, you hear so many stories and things. Like, how do you usually approach something when you first go there for the first time?
Well, I am by nature a skeptic. I'm still not convinced about a lot of this stuff. So I'm pretty rough sometimes when it comes to to analyzing this stuff. And there's a lot of stuff, a lot of people get upset with me because I'm like, no, that's not a ghost. That's not gunfire. That's not this. It's not that.
Yeah.
But then there are other times when I have no explanation for what they're showing me. And that's when I'm like, you try and, you ask them a dozen questions. And when you run out of the normal stuff, then you're into the paranormal. Okay.
Yeah.
Then you try and recreate it, and a lot of times you can, a lot of times you can't. The ghosts don't always cooperate. But in my last book, I have a chapter titled Deja Vu. What I discovered is that things that happened about, 14, 15 years ago in some of my first books, I'm getting reports of the same thing happening at the same place to different people.
Okay.
So that's about as close as I can get to the scientific method where you're supposed to be able to have reproducible. I have documentation of these things happening over and over again in the same place. Different people.
Well, we should explain too, when we don't do all that many investigations anymore, but when we do go in, the way that we work it is, first of all, we go in there during the day.
Yeah. Not like these TV shows where it's night, it's pitch black and okay.
No. The ghosts are there all the time.
Yeah.
So it really doesn't matter. But what we'll do is it will typically be Mark, me, and one of the mediums. And once we get in there, Mark will sit down with the owners.
Okay.
And start interviewing them. The medium and I will leave the room. We'll go do our investigation. And I will take notes and work with her and see what she's hearing, what they're telling her, what the experiences are. So she hears, neither one of us hears anything that the owner is saying to Mark. So then after we've done that, then we all get back together and compare notes.
Okay.
So we can say, all right, so the owners are hearing this.
Yeah.
And one of the spirits told us they like to do this. So it's like, well, we hear people walking up and down the stairs.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's one of the stories that we get from the ghosts of, oh yeah, we like running up and down the stairs, it's fun. So that's how we typically will do an investigation is, and then see.
Well, then you're not getting influenced, right?
Exactly.
So, okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
So
No, that's
if they're
cool.
hearing thumping and it's the furnace, then it's the furnace. It's not a ghost. But if a ghost can corroborate what they're doing.
Do you guys ever get, like, over the years, because you've been doing this for so long, have you ever had people contact you, and it's again like movies and TV shows, saying, my house is haunted, or I need help, or can you come and like look into something? Do you get people do that, or yeah?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Usually with that kind of a case, we give it some time.
Mm-hmm.
We will give them instructions on some things to do.
Okay.
And see if that helps. So we don't usually just go running in and say, oh my gosh, it's
Ghostbusters.
No. So we give them homework to do.
Mm-hmm.
And ask them to try a couple things, and we might ask them to put a recorder out on voice activation and see if they get stuff, set up cameras, or just even ask.
Yeah.
Have a conversation of saying, look, it's my house. You're not welcome here. You need to leave now, or whatever. So we will give them a bunch of things to try.
Okay.
Before we'll actually go in.
And just because when I was researching online, and you looked, like I said, I was on YouTube, and you look up Ghosts of Gettysburg, there were so many videos on YouTube. And as someone in this business, what do you guys think? Like, what's your take on like mainstream shows? And when you see videos like this online, are they authentic, or people just, making stuff up to get better ratings? And do you guys, how we touched earlier about the different websites, do you consider like other paranormal investigators or other ones that you see out there, are they like competition? Or is this kind of like one of those things where everyone works together? And
well, I look at it in terms of information,
mm-hmm.
And the only other question is it valid information?
Yeah.
And you can't, there've been a lot of things out on Gettysburg is I know like the back of my hand. So those are the places, that's the place that I feel most comfortable either debunking or verifying what these people have done.
Yeah.
And there's some good things out there. Others, if I'm not there, if I'm not there for the investigation, I don't like to say anything.
Okay.
One way or the other, because you can fake a lot of stuff with a infrared camera, or with a night vision camera, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
That things can be faked.
Yeah.
Let me put it that way. And one thing I noticed about some of the programs that are out, and I've worked with a lot of these guys that are on TV, when they first came out, they were debunking most of the stuff.
Okay.
No, it's not a ghost. It's this or it's that or whatever. But over the years, they started leaning more towards the places that are authentic.
Okay.
And proving that they're ghosts there, because and that is either true or it's the fact that the ratings, people want to see ghosts. They don't want to see things debunked. Okay?
Yeah.
They want proof of ghosts. And so that's my take on that.
Okay.
But,
they've also leaned more and more towards the dark stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which, it's, like I said, that's so rare to start with, but
mm-hmm.
That's when you get into kind of like that dark tourism thing.
Yeah.
People, that's what the audience wants. So that's kind of where they lean with it. Nobody
mm-hmm.
wants to see a happy ghost.
They want The Conjuring or something that's come out. Yeah.
They want to see something that's tormenting people and making them miserable in their house. And they don't want oh wow, we all get along. This is great.
We're gonna share our kitchen.
Yeah. We cook together, we clean together.
Yeah.
So that's not really what they had in mind. Although I have to say, when we did the Mysterious Journeys, That one was actually a lot of fun. And the stuff, people are going to, oh yeah, right. But everything that happened in that filming really happened. And the funny part about it was when we were at the Cashtown Inn, they have a basement there, and there's a spring that goes through the basement.
Okay.
And there were some stories around that area. And so the medium that we were with, we were down there, and of course it's dark, and she leaned over and was looking at the water, and something spooked her.
The sump pump went on.
Oh, that's right. The sump pump went on, and it wiggled. It was in the corner, and she screamed, and we all jumped, and they didn't get it on film. And afterwards they're like, can you recreate that? And we're like, no.
You're like, no.
I said, no, I don't think we can do that. So
And we're not actors.
it was
Sorry.
pretty fun. But yeah, I mean, most of the people out there that are doing the shows are good people, and say just TV's TV, and I know what they're looking for. So
okay. And I know that on your website it was talking about different I guess networks you guys have been featured on, like it said A&E, Travel Channel, History Channel, Unsolved Mysteries. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Like, how was it? Did you find working with a project like that different than from when you guys just go and do your own investigations, or were they more just like consulting you and just asking information?
Well, the Mysterious Journeys was interesting. They took how many 76 hours
Wow.
of film for they were there 2 weeks.
yeah,
for
45 minutes.
5 minutes.
Wow.
So it was a lot of stuff ended up on the proverbial cutting room floor, but a lot of it, all of it that we did was authentic. And I thought that was pretty interesting, because even the producers, who were incredibly young, I thought they were in their 20s there. But we got them off camera. We're like, try these dowsing rods. And they're like, oh, no, they won't work for me. So they're like, yeah, and the rods are crossing and doing this.
We were teaching them while they were doing the filming. It was really funny. But I think all of the different ones that we list a lot of them are just very different. The History Channel was when they took Mark's books and turned them into stories. So that was more the story. And we still have those available now. The originals are still out there on DVD.
Okay.
We had them converted and sell them. Other ones, they went and they were just interviews asking questions. Some of them wanted input or reactions to their investigations.
Okay, like they showed you footage kind of thing, and they were like, what do you think? Okay.
Yeah. So very, very interesting. But even like you look at the Ghost Adventures, when they were in Gettysburg, and they did Mark, and he was there as dressed up as a journalist.
Okay.
Well, at the point that they did Mark's interview, they had already done all the investigations. It was after the fact. So you just never know from the order that they do things in, because he was actually the introduction.
How many years ago was that you guys did that one?
8 or 10 years ago.
Yeah. So Ghost Hunters, Ghost Adventures. Yeah, we've worked with Ghost Hunters twice.
And with Jeff Belanger and
Yeah.
number of people. John Zaffis.
You guys have been around the block many times, it sounds like.
Yes, yeah.
It's a small community.
Yeah, it is.
The truly dedicated people in the paranormal is not a very big group.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
The only thing I'd say to people about other investigation groups is just do your homework. Go out and make sure that you ask questions, that you check them out, really look at things, because even in Gettysburg, there are some groups that you can pay and they'll take you out to a place and there'll be 30 people.
Okay.
Investigation. And, it's just, it's not going to work. It's just really.
It's not the same thing.
No.
Yeah.
No, it's not really an investigation. It's more like a walk through a house.
What I saw on your website, so it was talking about in 2022, you are getting the haunted crime scene investigations. where you can spend a weekend with a forensic expert, which is Catherine Ramslin. This sounds amazing. Can you kind of tell me what people can expect and what kind of experience and what kind of an investigation are they going to go on with you guys?
All right. Well, actually, yeah, we teamed up with the Balladary Inn.
Okay.
And so that's the headquarters for the weekend. And Catherine and I get together about a year in advance.
Okay.
And we're going through and we come up with a haunted crime scene. I've kind of determined we can only ever do one crime scene once.
Okay.
Can't repeat the weekends. I could get into, it's a long ex, but it just doesn't work.
Okay.
So we have to kind of start from scratch every time and pick a crime.
Mm-hmm.
And each one has had kind of a different focus for the attendees because we get a lot of the same attendees. So we want to challenge them.
Yeah.
Each time. We don't want them to get bored. So we pick the crime. And then Catherine and I research the heck out of these crimes. And she looks at it from the forensic point of view and putting together the information for that. And then I look at it from the paranormal aspect of it, because the philosophy behind it is based on the book that Catherine and Mark wrote together, The Haunted Crime Scenes. And the first one in the series is Blood and Ghost.
Okay.
Once an investigation has been done by the police and the CSIs, and they've hit a block, there's no more information to be had. They haven't solved the crime. They don't have any more to look at. Could you bring in paranormal investigators and come up with additional information about the crime? And it could be the actual people that participated in the crime, as in the perpetrator. I mean, someone has to be dead at this point, but it could be their relatives. It could be investigators that looked at it at the time and have since passed on.
Yeah.
So there's various components that we look for in the specific crime scene.
Okay.
So we've done all kinds of, well, the last one we did was the Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil.
Okay.
If you ever saw that movie, that was the one with Jim Williams. There's also a book out. It's based in Savannah.
I don't think I've seen that one. No.
Oh, you should pull it up and watch it.
I will.
Movie. But not all the facts were in there. And it was basically that the main personality, Jim Williams, killed his boy lover. Okay. And he claimed it was in self-defense. And there were several court cases based on it. He eventually was proven not guilty. Okay. But that was one we did. Another one we did, we actually recreated the crime scene. The attendees, we never leave the building. Everything, because one thing we've learned is the ghosts will come to us. Nice. We don't have to physically go to the crime scene. So Catherine and I try to come up with as much information, as much of the visual pictures from the crimes, the areas. We talk about the personalities that were involved. She does it from the forensic side of the analysis of who they were and the crime scene itself and things to look for. And then we cut people loose on it. So we do the introduction of the crime on Friday night. Then we continue to kind of feed out some information. We don't necessarily give them all of the information right from the start. But Catherine kicks off the weekend with the paranormal, with the actual forensic information. Okay. And so we look at it from a scientific and the legal perspective first. And then we provide them with all the information on the various characters. That's so cool. Go at it. And it's like, okay, guys, you have your pendulums, you have your EVP, you have whatever tools you want to use to see what, if you can figure out what happened. Yeah. We don't always get the answers, but it's a lot of fun trying to find them. Yeah. And we actually, in some cases, not that we could ever go to the police with the information. Like, look what we figured out. Yeah. And Patty Wilson is, she's also a paranormal investigator. She's also co-authored books with Mark. She's also an extremely talented medium. So again, my theory or my philosophy of keeping a medium on site for safety, particularly because we're dealing with crimes.
Mm-hmm.
So, we want to make sure that energy stays where it belongs. But yeah, we've had some really, really interesting things happen. You don't know coming in.
You don't know coming in what crime we're dealing with. So
that's cool.
We don't even typically tell Patty or Mark. Usually it's just Catherine and me that know.
Yeah.
This time around, Mark actually does know. But
okay.
It's not the only time
no cheating.
Not the only time she keeps me in the dark too. So it happens a lot, but that's okay. I'm fine.
And I guess with all the investigations and stuff that you guys have done over the years, do you have like a bucket list of any kind of like, say, haunted places that you'd love to visit that you haven't?
Yeah, I do, but I don't know if Carol would agree with him.
Sure. What's yours?
Battlefield of Little Bighorn.
Mm.
Yeah, battlefield out there. And as I said, some of the airfields over World War II airfields over in England.
Okay.
History and military history is kind of my bailiwick, and so those are the places I'd like to go.
Okay. What about you?
I know the places I don't like to go.
Okay.
No, I'm okay with the battlefields.
You want something different, maybe?
I'll go there once, but don't drag me there more than once.
Okay.
I'm really not big on the prisons and those kinds of places. I just really. We do an event almost every year that's at Mansfield in Ohio, and they're doing it again. It's Parapsychon in May.
Okay.
We know the organizers for it, and we go there, but I don't ever really go on the investigations or anything. I'm just like, It's
not your cup of tea.
I don't need to go dig up all the dark stuff. I'm good.
Since you're around so many different energies and just with your profession for what you guys do, does it make you more comfortable with death? And what do you think kind of happens then after someone passes away, as obviously all these energies and spirits linger? Do you think eventually once they've talked to someone, do they move on? Or is it kind of, what do you think on the topic?
Well, I am totally convinced that death is not a closing door.
Okay.
It's an opening door to, and scientifically, I mean, we talk about other dimensions, we talk about other vibratory states.
Mm-hmm.
I'm absolutely convinced that some part of our personality continues on, consciousness continues on. And consciousness is not in our brains, it's not in our heads.
Okay.
Consciousness will go on. And that's why you have situations where when bad people die, you get bad experiences with them. So that I'm convinced of, that something goes on. So that's what I gained out of this study.
I can say I've become a lot more spiritual throughout the process. I believe, or I've come to believe, that it's really our choice. We decide after death what happens. So like a lot of the soldiers that we run into in Gettysburg, a lot of them don't know that they died. A lot of them have a complete fear of judgment. They're terrified to cross over. So and more, I think it's our choice. But I also will say that the more, if you're committed to this field, the more you do it, the more you develop the sensitivities. I think we're all born with all of these abilities, but we get talked out of it, either by ourselves or everyone around us or whatever. And I think the more time you spend tapping into energy, the more you can come to recognize it. You're much more likely to walk into a place and suddenly feel chills. Yeah. Or, have you're more
aware.
Yes. You're just more tuned in.
Okay.
To what's going on.
I guess my last question for you guys is, when you guys are so busy, what do you do for downtime when you guys relax?
No downtime.
No downtime.
No time for downtime.
There's downtime.
It doesn't sound like it.
Yeah, we do. We take some vacations.
We
Okay.
do. And we have grandkids.
Yeah.
So
That's not downtime.
not well, but
No.
they're turning everything else off.
That's true. Yeah.
And we also are puppy raisers for a service dog organization. So that's
Okay.
kind of my hobby.
Yeah.
When I need to kind of turn off and go do something else, then it's time to train the dog.
Otherwise, that's about all we have time for today. So I want to thank you guys so much for joining me. This has been so much fun, and maybe I can have you guys back again at some point, because I'm sure there's many other things I'd love to ask you guys. And make sure to check out ghostsofgettysburg.com. Otherwise, again, thanks you guys for coming, and thank you to everyone for tuning in from home. This has been a great show tonight. Everything can.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks, Erin.
Yeah, no problem. And I'm pretty sure the app and everything, the tours, all of it's on your website, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, thank you again so much. And that's it for Morbid Planet tonight. Tune in next week and let us satisfy your morbid curiosity. Stay safe and stay morbid. Bye for now.